Welcome to the Nova Hoopcast. We are live here at Reston Town Center. Let me set the scene for you. If you didn't watch last week, we got a lot of good feedback on our coaches panel. So Buster and Kevin and I were talking about what's a different format we can try. So I think I said, have you ever seen comedians in cars getting coffee with Jerry Seinfeld? And so Kevin said, how about coaches in cars getting Diet Coke or getting caffeine, since he and I aren't coffee drinkers. So here we are. So we're going to do that today. Of course, it's just Buster and I. Kevin is out of town. He had to go on a college visit with his son. Really disappointed that he puts his son ahead of the Nova Hoopcast, but it is what it is. So what we're going to do in a few minutes is drive this classic 2014 Honda CR-V with 99,000 miles on it. We're going to pick up Gary Hall, former coach at Herndon High School. A lot of you old timers remember him. Really storied career at Herndon. Was at Herndon for a long time. Left and went to Middleburg Academy. Came back to Herndon, and he's now coaching in Texas. But he's in town for the weekend, so he's staying here at Reston Town Center. So we're going to go pick him up in a few minutes. I'll call him in a couple minutes and see if I can grab him some coffee. And there's all kinds of things we can talk about. So we're looking forward to that interview. But before we get started on that, let's just wrap up a couple things from this past week. We had 3 1,000-point scorers, all in Loudoun County. Kevin and Buster like to talk about the defense or the lack thereof in Loudoun County. We got 3 guys scoring 1,000 points, 2 of them at the same school at Briar Woods. We had Will Shin and Aiden Clark both going over the 1,000-point milestone. And then Trent Dawson, who's a CK, as Coach Reardon likes to call him, a coach's kid, going over the 1,000-point mark at Loudoun Valley. So congratulations to those guys. Really nice to see those accomplishments. And we love to highlight those things on the Nova Hoopcast. So this week coming up, we're wrapping up regular season. We're starting playoffs. When we do next week's Hoopcast, we'll be full on in playoff mode. So we're looking forward to that. But let's just kind of set the scene a little bit. South Lakes has wrapped up the Liberty. Congratulations to the Seahawks. Madison last week with a big win over Centerville. Madison runs the table in the Concord in the regular season. So they've clinched the #1 seed there. In the Patriot, we talked last week about Fairfax had a big week playing Lake Braddock in South County. Braddock beat Fairfax 91-82, and then South County beat us 71-69. So we've got a big matchup Tuesday night in the Patriot District with Braddock and South County, and that'll determine the #1 seed. Fairfax already has the #3 seed. So if you're looking for a game to see on Tuesday night, that Braddock-South County matchup would be a great one. Westpo is in good shape in the Gunston District. Potomac and Prince William is playing very well, so they'll be in the driver's seat in the Cardinal District. Freedom South Riding with a big win this past week over Potomac Falls, so they're in good shape in the Potomac. The National District, we've talked about how tight that is. Wakefield and Edison are tied. Falls Church is right behind them. That looks to be a great tournament, so we'll see who ends up with the #1 seed there. The Dulles District also is one of those districts we've talked about a lot this year, that any number of teams are capable of winning that one. So County's in first place, but Dominion and Loudoun Valley are right behind them. And then I think Cedar Run District, Patriot is playing very well. I think Patriot and Potomac and Prince William are 2 of the hottest teams around right now. So there's a quick kind of look around the region. We've got some playoffs starting this week in the Cedar Run. Monday, OP and Battlefield play. Friday, the Patriot District starts. Again, we've got that big Lake Braddock and South County matchup Tuesday night that'll determine the #1 seed in the Patriot. But I think most leagues are kind of wrapping up regular season play this week, and some are starting playoffs at the end of the week. But again, once we get into next week, we'll be in full district tournament mode, so we're looking forward to that. Buster Weiss's truck going by when we're trying to film. Anyway, so that's a quick recap. We're really looking forward to talking about the playoffs. So again, coaches in cars getting caffeine coming your way real soon. Coach Hall is staying right here in Reston Town Center, so I'm going to give him a call here in just a second, see what I can pick him up for the ride, and we're looking forward to that interview, so stay tuned. Gary, hope I didn't wake you. Hey, it's Brian. We're about ready. Okay, yep. Can I pick you something up? Some coffee? We're going to Starbucks or Einstein or something. Okay, perfect. All right, we'll be there in about 5 minutes. All right, we're going to go pick up Coach Hall. All right, here we go. Welcome to the first episode, and maybe the last, of Coaches and Cars Getting Caffeine.
Time will tell, right?
Feel free to adjust the seat if you need to. Hopefully we're not getting pulled over. We have one of Fairfax County's finest right behind us. All right, we're going to pull out. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Yeah,
A little
thanks
adjustment
for,
to the Northern Virginia weather.
Yeah, no kidding. Thanks for participating in the experiment.
Oh, sure. Happy to be a guinea pig.
So we said, so we did that coaches panel. I don't know if you watched that one. That was pretty cool. We had
With, Rocky.
Yeah, we had
Jeff,
Rocky and Jeff Hawes
that.
and Doug Ewell. So we're like, well, what's something else we could do? And we're sitting around, and I said, well, have you ever seen? And you need to direct me to Herndon High School too.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know all the shortcuts.
Sure.
I said, have you ever seen, comedians, cars getting coffee? And then Kevin's like, well, how about coaches and cars getting caffeine or coffee? We're Diet Coke drinkers. So anyway, so here we are. So we'll see how it
And
goes.
Kevin bails on us.
Yeah, he's on a college visit with his son. So
for
I
him.
said, I can't believe he put his son ahead of
Right.
ahead of us.
Where's his priorities?
Yeah. So anyway, so we're live now, kind of. So let's start. So there's two questions we got to get into right away. So first, what brings you into town? I know you were at Herndon on Friday night.
Well, so Friday night was the last game in the Hornet's Nest.
Right. They're undergoing renovation.
Undergoing major renovations.
Yeah.
So the game against Langley on Friday night was, I guess there's still a possibility they could host a playoff game.
Okay.
That's still to be determined.
Right.
But so we had a mini basketball reunion.
Right.
About 50 or so former
Awesome.
players come back in town, and
Cool.
so yeah, it was a great time. Good time to catch up and see everyone.
Good. Awesome. And the Hornets won.
The Hornets did win.
All right.
They did.
Nice.
I spent. I'm not sure. I saw maybe a couple plays.
Right.
was too busy talking to everyone, but
I hear you.
it was good to be back home.
Gotcha.
And we'll turn left here.
So just for those who might be watching, you were at Herndon, and then you left Herndon, and then you came back to Herndon. So kind of an unusual path in a coaching career. But how many years were you there the first run?
19.
Okay. And then you left for how many years?
Then I left for 4.
Okay. And that's when Chris Whelan came in.
Chris,
one of your former players.
One of my former players. So
Okay.
Chris took over.
And you didn't you go coach
At
girls
Briar
for a
Woods.
little? Yeah,
I did,
you were.
so-
Were your girls out there at the time?
Right. So
Okay.
that's the way it all happened. Is
Right.
when my daughters were freshmen,
Right.
they played JV basketball at Briar Woods.
Right.
And so I was able to watch every one of their games
Right.
and then just go from Briar Woods High School or wherever they were playing to
Right.
where we were playing.
Right.
And I was blessed to have an outstanding coaching staff. So they rode the
Right.
bus, they took care of everything, pregame, locker room, and I showed up and I
Right.
coached. And that was a great
Right.
time. But then the following year, with them playing varsity basketball, I knew I would not be able to, that wouldn't
Right.
work out. And
Right.
it was really important for me to be there
Yeah.
to watch them play, sort of
Yeah.
like what you were talking about last
Sure.
night with Coach
Sure.
Harris. So
Yeah, good for you. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, coaches have families too, and I was fortunate in that I ended my head coaching career at Centerville, which is where my kids were. I didn't plan it that way, but it kind of worked out, so I was able to be there for both. But if I had to choose, I would have chosen my kids.
Right.
And so you did that, so good for you. So then you're at Briar Woods for 2 years.
I was at Briar Woods, and then
Straight
I
or
knew
right?
I'll go straight.
Okay.
So I knew I still wanted to be a head coach.
Right.
And so once my girls graduated, I looked, and there wasn't an opportunity in Fairfax County that I was interested in. Mm-hmm. And this entire time, I was still teaching at Herndon.
Right.
And so the job at Middleburg Academy became available.
Right.
And one of my former players was the girls' coach
Oh, okay.
at Middleburg.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he convinced me. I came out for an interview, and I'm like, maybe this is the best of both
Yeah,
worlds. I can
yeah.
be a head coach again. I can, I'll still continue to teach at Herndon. So
After worrying about losing players to private schools
Right.
all those years,
Right.
you could go be on the other side of it.
and and obviously, and we'll probably get into that a little
Right,
bit because the grass isn't always greener.
Yeah.
It appears to be.
Right.
But so that was, and it was because the thing that made that difficult being at Middleburg was, you're right, because now all of a sudden, I mean, the lifeblood of a private school is recruiting.
Sure.
And we don't have a built-in feeder system,
Right.
especially at a school like Middleburg.
Right.
It's far removed.
Yeah.
So I had to go out and recruit
Right.
kids that played for my former
Right.
competitors and friends,
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but it was an easy transition, and you know how that is. It's all parents think that their son is a Division I player.
Sure.
And I was fortunate at Herndon to have Scotty Reynolds, and,
Right, right.
and so Scotty, not because of anything I did, but Scotty gave me some credibility.
Right.
So I get the job at Middleburg, and people assume if they come and play at Middleburg, then they're
They're
going
gonna
to
be the
at
next Scotty
Villanova. Like,
Reynolds.
exactly. So
Right. Now, were you still teaching at Herndon?
I was
at the
still
time?
teaching at Herndon. Yep.
Right.
And so then, after the season is over, and we had and we'll turn right here. Right. We had a great first year. Went to the state finals game. Lost to James McAdoo's team, Norfolk Academy.
Yeah.
So it was a great year.
Right.
But I mean, the thing that I was so blessed, because how many people get to their first head coaching job is their dream job.
Right.
And so for me to be the head coach at Herndon High School, there was never going to be anything that could duplicate or replicate that.
Right.
So I have, Chris calls me up, invites me out to lunch, and he says, all those resumes you're sending out? He's like, put a stop to that. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, Lindsay and I are expecting our first baby,
Right.
and I'm going to resign.
Wow.
So it was really difficult going through the interview process. So you have to understand, I'd never, from the time I got the job at Herndon in 1989, the interview process has changed.
Right.
A little bit.
Yeah, slightly.
I was
You had the whole
offered
panel and everything?
the panel, right?
Yeah.
And so I was offered the job at Herndon at Virginia Kitchen over breakfast by the principal.
Wow.
And that was the interview process.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden I'm in a room with
Parents.
and everyone that I know. And so
Yeah.
they're asking me,
Right.
because they ask me the same questions, that they're asking all the other
Right.
candidates.
Right. Got to keep everything
So what
consistent.
how familiar are you with the basketball program at Herndon High School? And do you know how difficult that is to, that was
Right.
the most difficult interview.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if they were, I'm like, are you serious? Really?
Right,
Like,
right.
am I supposed to answer that?
Yeah.
How familiar are you with our opponents in the Concord district? So,
Talk about awkward.
and then I think they had to go, I mean, and it was a long, drawn-out process, because I think they had to show that
Right.
everything was fair and
Yeah.
above board.
Everything a level playing field.
Right.
And, yeah.
So I ended up getting the job, and then I guess I stayed for 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. That's in the whole. But you were teaching at Herndon the whole
I
time.
taught at Herndon the entire time.
Even that, like interviewing for the job when you've been on the staff,
Right.
the teaching staff the
Exactly.
entire time.
And we'll turn right here.
Yeah. That's funny. All right. A million things we can talk about, but one I want to jump to, and we'll fill in some of the gaps here in a few minutes. But so you moved to Texas again, I think for family reasons, and you're down there. You coach public school, private school. But the big news recently is you've been selected to coach in the McDonald's All-American game. Awesome, unbelievable honor. So tell us maybe how that came about.
And so, unbeknownst to me, I have no idea how the process works for the
Right.
McDonald's All-American.
There probably
Because
very few people do know,
right,
yeah.
and we'll turn right here.
Yeah.
Because never, ever did I ever think that I would even be nominated or even,
Right.
because just not in that category.
Yeah.
So when I heard that the game was going to be held in Houston,
Right.
I sent Joe Wooten a text offering our gym for practice,
Right.
slam dunk contest,
Marketing your program.
our program, and
Yeah.
you know, and if you need me to be an ambassador,
Yeah.
you know, and again,
Look at
isn't
this.
that something?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
As we're passing
Right.
Herndon High School. Okay, so you
And so-
text Joe. And
so-
Joe's on the committee.
Joe's
and
on
his,
the
his
committee.
dad was.
Absolutely.
John Wooden was.
Right,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So, didn't hear back from him, and you know, not that I expected to right away. You know, he's in the middle of season, and
Right.
so I was fortunate enough to my team, St. Thomas High School in Houston. We were attending the prestigious Beach Ball Classic
Right.
this year in Myrtle Beach,
Right.
and that's the third time that I've been able to take a team to Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
So we go to Myrtle Beach and still haven't heard from Joe, and then I get back, and it's been about 3 weeks, and I get a call from his wife, and so she leaves a message, and at first I was like, oh, well, I guess they don't need the gym, and Joe's
Right.
so busy, he just had Terry give me a call, and, you know, let her do the dirty work and
Right,
say, no,
right,
you know, we're not
right.
interested.
Yeah.
So I get busy, and I forget to call Terry back because I think it's not that important.
Yeah.
Well, then I get a phone call from the director of the Beach Ball Classic, John Rhodes,
Right.
and John says, have you spoken with Terry Wooten? And I'm like, no, I haven't had a chance to give her a call back. And he's like, well, you need to call her ASAP.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, oh, I guess they do need our gym.
Yeah.
So I call Terry back, and she says, hey, Coach, congratulations. I just wanted to let you know that you've been selected to coach in the McDonald's All-American game.
That's awesome.
And I mean, my jaw dropped
Yeah.
because I mean, like,
Do you think it was a prank of some
I
sort?
thought I did think it was a prank because
Right.
that would be something John Rhodes would do.
Yeah.
So I called John Rhodes back, and I was like, she asked me to coach.
Right.
She doesn't need our gym.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know. I'm like, well, how do you know?
Right.
He's like, because I'm on the selection committee, and or I'm on the nominating committee for coaches, and
Right.
I put your name in,
Right.
and you were selected.
Right.
And I'm like, but John, I don't belong in that game. Like, of all the coaches, right, and even the great coaches in Northern Virginia, Brian Metris, Glenn
Right.
Farello,
Right.
all of those. So
Right.
it's quite an honor.
Yeah.
So there's our gym, and that's
Yeah.
you can see where they're. So the gym is.
Right.
It's going to be longer. So
Yeah.
now what's going to happen is it's going to be even I mean, it was such a great home court advantage
Oh,
anyway,
it was.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So now
So they're gonna have bleachers on the end, right?
So there's
Because we were
one-
over here
right.
speaking to Coach Quinlan.
just one inline, unless
Yeah.
it's changed. So
Yeah.
that's something that I was fortunate enough to have a little bit of input in
Yeah.
before I left,
Yeah.
thinking that I was going to be coaching
Right.
in the new gym.
Sure.
But so we put the student section
Right.
under a basket.
Right.
And I got that idea. I mean, a lot of people have it, but that's
Yeah.
what, like Villanova, their
Sure.
students were behind, and I spent so
You've
much
probably
time.
been there once or twice.
Yeah,
huh?
so it's going to be nice. And now it's also going to have, like most gyms, it has two full courts, or two courts running side by side. Well, now
Right.
it'll have three.
Oh, nice.
So it's going to be
Yeah.
a larger space.
It'll be good for them for practice.
It
as
will
well.
be. It will
Yeah.
be. It will
Well,
be.
we've talked on this show before, so it'll be similar to West Springfield. And I don't know if you've been over there since they renovated.
I haven't been to West
So when you have the
Springfield
bleachers on the baseline in a small gym, it's a really nice feel,
Oh,
as
absolutely.
opposed to the Braddocks and
or
Robinsons.
Robinson, right.
Yeah, I really like the feel of it. It has a little bit of an arena feel, a little bit of a college feel to it, so that'll be cool.
So
When-
the depth
do you know how long?
perception,
Yeah.
depth perception is
Not an issue.
Is not an
Right,
issue like
right.
it is at a Robinson or
Yeah.
a Lake Braddock. So
How
I
many, do you know how many years before you get to come back and see the completed
well, I
project?
hope I'll be back next
Yeah.
year to see it. So
Yeah, hopefully it's done.
yeah, absolutely. But it's no, it's beautiful. It's beautiful inside. Just walking around the other night, it was. I mean, we got lost.
Right.
It's like, hey,
Right.
what happened to the
Yeah.
hallway here? What happened? So,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Like the original plans were, this is going to be completely covered,
Right.
and so this is the current weight room.
Yeah.
And so I think locker rooms.
Okay.
What I was hoping for, and I don't know if it worked out, is the basketball locker room would be behind the student section.
Right.
And another thing that they do at Villanova, when they come out for pregame warm-ups, they walk down through the student section.
Oh, cool.
So
I like that.
that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what we were hoping to do here, but I don't know if it worked out or
Nice.
not.
Nice. All right. So here's a really, really tough question. Is there one memory that stands out from all your years here, or one emotion or anything that when you pull in here and you look at this, that comes to your mind first?
I'll tell you, and I did this for, well, what, 20, 25 years?
Yeah.
When I turned off Drainsville, and I would pull in and drive by the front of the school.
Right.
Every day I looked over at the front of the building because they would have the state championship teams
Right.
displayed
Yeah.
in years.
Yeah.
And I always my goal was to put
Right.
basketball
Yeah.
2000.
Right.
So that was always a goal.
Sure.
And then after losing in the state championship game,
Right.
then every day I didn't know if I'd ever get another chance.
Yeah.
But every day I looked at that wall, and that's what helped motivate me.
Right.
You know, on those days after a tough loss, or
Right.
you know, and so in this gym, so many memories. I was
Yeah.
thinking about that, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, we as coaches, so many of the
Right.
memories
Right.
are tough losses.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, because those stay with us a lot more
Yeah.
than the wins.
Right. Yeah, they say the wins are a relief, and the losses eat away at you. And I'll say, as an opposing coach, I mean, obviously, very difficult place to play, but also really enjoyable place to play.
Yeah.
You'd much rather go into this than go into an empty gym.
Absolutely.
You know, and
Well, I mean,
and if
we
you're-
would have like the South Lakes games.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Right.
Because
Right.
I mean, you have people sneaking into locker room windows,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I mean, one night, I mean, and especially during Scotty's years, because
Right.
Scotty, I mean, this will date myself. People may
Right.
not like we were like the Beatles.
Yeah.
You know, wherever we played, people
Yeah.
followed us.
Right.
I mean, we
Right.
had a huge following,
Yeah.
and so. But I do remember. I remember because it was interesting. You know, I get the job, and we were a very average program, I think.
Right.
The 4 years before I took over, Herndon was exactly 500.
Right.
And I was telling someone back in Texas, like when I first got the job, I was everyone's best friend.
Right.
Because we were getting beat
Yeah.
pretty. I mean,
Yeah.
like Madison would just,
Right.
and they had great
Right.
teams, Lamerson, Hagler,
Sure.
those glory days, and no one.
Right.
I mean, they put it to us.
So people would call you a lot when they were putting their non-district schedules
Absolutely, we were at the top of that list.
Yeah.
And then we started to get pretty good,
together. Right.
and then I hear rumors that I'm cheating
Yeah.
out of season practice,
Right.
you know, doing those things.
Right.
And if anyone had ever been over to our gym, that just wasn't the case.
Right.
And but that was a compliment, right? And then all of a
Right.
sudden, no one wants to play us,
Right.
and no one wants to schedule us.
Right.
But even in this gym, when I first took over, not great crowds.
Right.
And I remember walking out of our locker room one night, and the gym was absolutely packed for a JV game.
Right. Everybody getting there early.
And I know this sounds terrible, but I kind of got teary-eyed.
Yeah.
Because I remembered how far
Right.
we've come.
Right.
And I remember there was a time where, I mean, even our parents couldn't get into games.
Right.
And when we played South Lakes, I mean, they couldn't get into games.
Right.
So one time there was a rumor that we hear that they made an announcement at South Lakes that they wanted everyone to get in, because if South Lakes brought their fans,
Right.
then our
Then
fans
your
wouldn't get
fans
in.
wouldn't be able to get in.
So I heard that their fans were going to get there for tip-off of the JV game.
Right.
Well, then I make an announcement that I'm buying free pizzas for anyone that shows up for the freshman game. So then the freshman game is sold out. So now
Right.
they still can't get in.
Right.
And so, but so many great,
That's
many
awesome.
great memories.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got it. We are going to move to Texas here in a minute, but okay. And you got to. I might have to cut you off on this one.
Absolutely.
So, if there's one name other than Gary Hall that people think about with Herndon, it's Scotty Reynolds.
Absolutely.
So, unbelievable player. Maybe still be playing a little bit.
He's still
Yeah,
playing. He's
still
playing in Greece.
So, I'm not sure where to start. Just a legendary player, and you kept him here. In this day and age, that's hard to do, and maybe even now more difficult than when he was with you.
Right.
In terms of all the opportunities out there that kids have to go to private schools. But How hard did you have to fight to keep him? Or he strikes me as a very loyal kid, so I don't know if he ever really entertained it or not. But
So, quite the contrary, I suggested to Scotty that he leave.
yeah,
And a couple quick stories, and I know because I could go on and on and
Right,
on. So,
right.
I coached Scotty when he was 10 years old.
right. I remember
Just
that.
happenstance. Nova United.
Yep.
I coached a 10-year-old team. Everyone told me I had to get this kid named Scotty Reynolds to play.
Right.
So Scotty plays for me, and we develop a great relationship, and he moves to, his dad gets a job in Chicago.
Right.
So one day I'm in the hallway, and I was like, a kid came up to me, and he's like, "Hey, Coach, you remember that kid named Scotty Reynolds?" And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever happened to that kid?"
Right. Right.
Because I'm the last person to
Yeah.
get on the internet or something.
Right.
He's like, "Well, he's the best player in the state of Illinois,
Uh-huh.
and he's moving to Herndon." And I'm like, "No, okay, there's either two things are happening.
Right.
If he's coming to Herndon, he's not very good, because
Yeah.
that doesn't happen here.
Right.
And if he's that good, he's not coming to Herndon."
Right.
So I understand he was going to go play at St. Joe's, where Isaiah Thomas,
Oh, right.
Dreams.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
called the coach,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Coach, here's a rumor I heard." He's like, "Look, I don't know if he's coming to Herndon, but he is moving back to Virginia.
Yeah.
And he's the best player that I've seen since Isaiah Thomas." So they
Right.
come to Herndon.
Yeah.
And what Scotty told his family is he was devastated to move
Right.
back.
Yeah.
And they said, "Scotty, we'll move anywhere you want."
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, I want to move. I want to play for Coach Hall,
Right.
and I want a house close enough to the high school where I can walk to the gym."
Yeah.
So they bought a house right across the street.
Wow. Awesome.
They tell me, "Gary, we don't do basketball." And
Yeah.
what a relief from parents, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll sell popcorn, work the snack bar, whatever you need us to do. If he should play freshman, play him on freshman. JV.
Right.
The first game of his career, he played against Langley.
Yeah.
And he scored 19 points. I had
Right.
two other Division I players, Ricky Lucas, Brad Farrell.
Mm-hmm.
Scotty scores 19 points as a freshman, just misses one free throw.
Right.
The next morning, I get a call from his mom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, brother, it's
Here we
starting
go.
already."
Right. Right.
And she said to me, "Brian, I'll never forget this." She said, "Coach, this is Pam. Rick and I were talking last night, and we think you played Scotty too much." Now, how many of those
I've never
phone
gotten
calls?
one of those calls. Zero.
And so then his 10th grade year, I go to Scotty, and I'm like, "Scotty, look." Oh, so of course his freshman year, big controversy because Scotty is deeply religious.
Right.
Bible study every Wednesday night, so we never practiced, never played on Wednesdays. And then,
Right.
of course, we play South Lakes in the region finals.
Yeah.
And because of the snow,
Right.
it got postponed to a Wednesday, and Scotty
Yeah.
had to leave that game in the
Right.
fourth quarter.
Right.
So then Scotty comes up to me after that game, next
Right.
day in school, and he's like, "Coach, before I graduate from Herndon, I'll make sure you get that region championship."
Right. Right.
So then his sophomore year, he blows up, and I'm like, "Scotty, I think it's time to leave Herndon.
Right.
Like, I've done about all I can do to help you.
Yeah.
Oak Hill,
Right.
you need
All
to be
the
someplace
usual.
else."
Right. Right.
And he's like, "Coach, I told you, as long as you're at Herndon, I'm at Herndon.
Right.
If you leave Herndon, I'm leaving Herndon."
Yeah.
Okay. So then, his junior year, he breaks his ankle.
Right.
So, sophomore year, we lost in the Final Four, quarterfinals or something.
Right.
Then his senior year, we make it back to the Final Four.
Right.
And so
Still at the Patriot Center.
at the Patriot
Yeah.
Center, and here's
good old days.
And here's something that people don't understand about that game. So we're playing TC Williams, and they were really good.
Yeah.
And in the other semifinal was Madison versus Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kevin Weirin.
Kevin Weirin, that's probably why he's really not here today.
Right.
So I come to school, and my second best player is not at school.
Yeah.
Our only big guy, our starting big guy, and he's late for school.
Larry.
Larry Binion doesn't
Yeah.
make it to school.
Yeah.
And I had an assistant coach that was in charge. He picked Larry up every single day, and he did not pick him up that day.
Right.
And Larry was late.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that knows Larry's late, so I know that I could
Yeah.
get away with, but
Right. Larry Binion wasn't in school.
Larry Binion wasn't in school.
Okay, and you were the only one that knew.
I knew.
Well, your assistant knew probably.
Yeah. And
All right.
so I had a moral decision to make.
Yeah. Happens all the time in
Happens
coaching.
all the time. It does. And so I called Scotty down to the gym and explained the situation. And because Scotty was really the person that I was most concerned about, because he deserved to go to the state championship before his career ended.
Yeah.
And I said, here's my decision. I'm not going to play Larry.
Yeah.
And he said, Coach, we're good.
Yeah.
And he said, that's the right thing to do. I said, but you need to tell me, though, who should play.
Yeah.
And remember, we had a kid that transferred over from Oakton that was a really good player but didn't start for us, by the name of Chase Miller.
Yeah.
And Chase was Scotty's guy. And,
Right.
and so Scotty says, Coach, go with Chase.
Right.
So we replace 6'6" Larry with 5'8" Chase. And Chase made all-tournament team.
Right.
Had a great game against TC. We won that game, and now we go in to play Marshall. And
with Daniel Dixon.
And they were really good. And Kevin did a great job. But I'm sitting there watching the game, and like everyone sort of thought it was going to be a Madison Herndon, because Madison was extremely talented.
Yeah.
And Kevin did a great job. They win the semifinals. But I started thinking as I'm watching the game, oh shoot. You know, like you can justify losing to Madison because they're talented. Man, if we lose to Marshall, like I don't think people understood how good Marshall was because of their style of play. And so I'll never forget that we always, as you know, played straight man-to-man defense. So Saturday morning, I get the guys together for a shoot-around walkthrough, and we put in a 2-2-1 half-court trap to try to take away their four-corner offense. And it was, the whole message was, we're not going to let Marshall be Marshall. If they're going to beat us, they're going to beat us doing something else. But I should have known that regardless of how we played, there was no way Scotty Reynolds was going to allow us to not win that game. And so one of the greatest moments that still brings chills to me is after the introduction, Star Spangled Banner, guys are out there for the tip, and Scotty runs over to the sidelines and he says to me, he's like, Coach, remember that promise I made to you when I was a freshman? Tonight's for you. Just sit back and enjoy this. So you knew then Marshall didn't really stand a chance that night. So.
Great story. Obviously, I mean, he's right up there. Obviously, you have to mention Grandel, but I think Scotty's right up there. Those two guys stand out in my mind. And there's been a lot of great players coming from Virginia and a lot of the old timers, but boy, he was something special to watch. Gary, we can talk forever, but we really can't because Buster, I'll get in trouble with Buster if we keep going. But let's change gears a little bit. So Texas basketball. So the old saying about Texas is the top two sports are football and spring football. Can you confirm that?
Absolutely. I tell you, so spring football is so important that they made up a season just for soccer. So soccer happens between the end of fall football and it ends before spring football starts. So you can't play
because they need that field available.
Exactly. You can't play soccer and basketball in the state of Texas. So can you imagine here, especially on the girls' side of things, because most of your better basketball players are also great soccer players, so they have to choose in Texas.
Basketball would be over.
It would be over. And so there's no question that football is king. And I was thinking about that, some of the differences is like, I mean, they certainly put more of an emphasis on athletics. I'm not saying that that's a great thing. I think you have to have a healthy balance. And one of the noticeable differences is in the state of Texas, if you're an athlete, you're not required to take PE classes. So you have what's called an athletic period. So you go to your sport every single day.
I think it makes sense. And I was an administrator for 10 years. I mean, the
you're a member of the marching band.
Right.
Instead of going to PE, you go to band practice. And so it makes sense, but you can also understand why a young man develops so much. I mean, so
Sure.
for 4 years he's with his football coach. And so
Yeah.
what happens if you're a dual sport, then it works out great. So in the fall, you play football. You go to football practice every single day during PE class.
Yeah.
And during that time, you're not always you get. I mean, it's a normal class period.
Yeah. You're lifting.
You're lifting. You're watching film. You're working on footwork. So in Texas, you have time. Let's say, because one of our complaints here in Northern Virginia is, like for me, I spend so much time working on defense. We were a terrible offensive team because I don't have time to teach motion.
Right.
So I'm just going to run a play because plays are easy to put in.
Right.
And so, but in Texas, you can spend time talking about and teaching how to come off screens and how to read the defense. And so, so what happens is in the fall, if you're a football player, you go to football class. Then when basketball season starts, you go to basketball.
It's pretty significant advantage.
Right, no question.
Yeah.
In the spring, you go every other day. Football on Monday, basketball Tuesday, football on Wednesday. So, and let's face it, because what benefit? Now, I will say this also now, in the state of Texas, there's no driver's education in the public school system. And health class is a completely separate entity. It's not part of the PE curriculum.
Right.
So, what benefit is it for Scotty Reynolds to go to PE class?
Yeah.
So,
All right, so you're at St. Thomas Aquinas in the Houston area.
yeah, just St. Thomas High School.
Okay, St. Thomas.
So, all boys school, very similar to high academic school, very similar to the WCAC schools here, Gonzaga, St. John's.
Right. Tell us about your basketball program there.
So, this is my second year at St. Thomas, and so in the state of Texas, it's very different than here in terms of everyone there grows up wanting to play for their public school.
That's cool.
Yeah. So private schools are just like, so here, and you can correct me, if you have aspirations of playing college basketball, your goal is to play in the WCAC. You want to play it. You think that playing at a private school will help you reach that goal.
Right.
In the state of Texas, and it's starting to change, you go to a private school because you're not good enough to maybe make your public school team.
Right.
So the competition is not, but it's changing. So now, only recently, like the best teams, the best private school teams can compete with the best public school teams. But top to bottom, not as strong. My team, so this was my first year having a full quote-unquote year to recruit.
Right.
And so recruiting, we all know the benefits. The downside is, I mean, I'm out almost every night watching the middle school game.
Right.
You have to build a relationship with the AAU programs.
Right.
And that's not always
Double-edged sword.
It's a double-edged sword. And then you work really hard to get a kid and a family interested in St. Thomas, and then they get a better deal somewhere else, and at the last minute, they're gone to another school.
Yeah.
So you don't have the feeder. We can turn right here. You don't have the built-in feeder program, and you have to hustle.
Sure. You're like a college coach.
So what I'm like at St. Thomas right now is I'm like at a mid-major where I just took over the job, and right now I rely on graduate transfers and JUCO players.
Right.
Because it's really difficult to get 8th graders in. Our school, academically, it's a really strong school, so it's easier for us to get transfers from other high school programs. But we have a really good foundation. I only have one senior. We're currently tied for first place in our conference. We finish up the season on Tuesday night. And then another difference in Texas is there are no conference tournaments. So once our season ends, we'll go straight to our state tournament.
Okay. But it's not, I think I asked you this already, it's not publics and privates.
No, it's completely separate.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Kind of like Virginia.
Right. So we'll play for a Texas private school championship. And within the private schools, there are 6 classifications, just like there are in the public schools.
Well, we're approaching your hotel here. Hey, so when McDonald's game?
McDonald's game is April 1st.
Okay. So what else? So it's more than you just show up and coach a game. You said there's dunk contests and all that. What else is involved in it?
So the really cool thing is that they give me the opportunity to choose 2 assistant coaches.
Right.
And they'll fly those 2 coaches in from anywhere in the country.
You selected one of your former players.
I did, and that's a really neat thing because so Latiki Colombo, who was my very first Division I player at Herndon High School, is currently coaching in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right.
So Latiki's going to come to Houston and be one of my assistant coaches. And so coaches, players arrive on Saturday night. We're in a hotel in Houston, and there's a 3 or 4 days of events, dunk contest, visit NASA, Ronald McDonald House, practices. So it's more than just a game.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's great. It'll be on TV. Is it on ESPN?
ESPN, April 1st. I believe it's at 6 o'clock.
All right. Very good. Be sure to tune in. Well, this has been great, Gary. We could go for hours.
We could go, absolutely.
We'll do that sometime. But congratulations on that honor, coaching the McDonald's game, and then certainly on coming back and being there for that last Herndon game before they do the renovation. Really cool, and I'm sure see a lot of your former players at that event. So great to have you back in Northern Virginia. Great to tell a lot of stories, and someday Kevin Weirin and I talked about the best episodes will be when we're both retired, when we're all retired. So when you retire for good, we'll all get together and we'll tell all the stories that maybe we can't tell.
We can't tell now.
Yeah, since we're all still
the real truth.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, good stuff. We're gonna let you out here. And try not to run over Buster.
Hopefully, then trip on the curb.
And then we'll do this again next time you're in
I look
town.
forward to it. I appreciate it, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
The first episode of Coaches and Cars Getting Caffeine is in the books.
Awesome.
Hopefully we didn't mess it up too much, Buster. All right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Buster?